Hello, you're welcome. You're welcome onto my channel today, and it gives me great joy to observe you as viewing this video. I am Dr. Olayinka Akonle. I am a lecturer in the university. I am a sociologist. On this channel, I do a number of stuffs, but all the stuffs I do on this channel, you can easily cluster them into four: sociology, research, relationship, and migration. But this video you are viewing now is within my playlist of sociology. Meanwhile, are you subscribed onto this channel? If no, what are you waiting for? Kindly go ahead and tap the subscribe button on your screen right now. Click the subscribe button on your screen right now, and if you have subscribed previously, thank you very much for staying tuned. Meanwhile, there are many other videos on sociology on this channel. Kindly check the playlist. I've created a playlist of all my clusters: sociology, research, relationship, migration, so you can easily see which one you want to view. And this video you are viewing now, there are previous videos I've made on sociology that are related to this particular one. So for you to have extensive understanding of this video, you might have to view some other related videos. And so the title of this video is Non-Structuralist Perspective. Non-Structuralist Perspective. You know, this is a perspective that is in constant communication with the structuralist perspective. I made a video on consensus perspective or structural functionalism. I made another video on the differences and connections between structural functionalism and functionalism. So those two videos will assist you to sufficiently understand what I will be discussing or teaching in this video. So, and there's another video on social action theory, another video on symbolic interactionism. There's another video on micro and macro sociology. You might have to view these videos all together as a supplement of this particular video. But this video today is on structural perspective. And the best way to understand this is to look at it as a conversation with the structuralist perspective. Structuralist perspective is essentially macro, looking at the role of the structure on human behavior. And when you look at the theories like functionalism or structural functionalism or feminism, there's another video on feminism on this channel, Marxism. You know, these theories are essentially within the framework of structuralist perspective. This perspective of structuralists believe that the structure, the social institutions in society act as deterministic of how people behave, you know, believing that people behave because of the roles of the structure on them. The structures are essentially totalitarian or authoritarian in terms of top-bottom approach to explaining human action. That the top activity of the structures and institutions determine how people behave. This is what I call structural deterministic. The structures determine, or structural determinism, believe that the structures of society, institutions of society determine how people behave. So this is actually the role of structure on people's behavior. On the other hand, non-structuralist perspective believe that wait a minute, it's not only the role of social institutions or social structure that determines how people behave. You know, so that's why we call them non-structural or non-structuralist perspective. That is the role of structures, you know, the role is overemphasized, is overbloated, that it is over-celebrated, as though human beings are robots. So non-structuralist perspective continues to say you can't look at the role of structures alone, or essentially to understand how people behave. So the non-structuralists are also known as interactionists. So non-structuralist perspective or interactionism, you know, this is the way we describe non-structuralist perspective. We call them non-structuralist perspective or interactionism. And those people within these perspectives are called interactionists. And prominent among these interactionists are George Mead. This is the person that propounded the theory of symbolic interactionism. There's a video on that on this channel. There's also Max Weber. Max Weber is a major interactionist. Max Weber propounded social action theory. Max Weber also developed the institutional arrangement, organizational structure that is now known as bureaucracy. So Max Weber is also an interactionist. Then you can also talk about Peter Berger, whose work, set the foundation for social construction, or constructionism. Then you have Peter Luckman, who worked essentially with Peter Berger to do a lot of work. So George Herbert Mead reigned between 1863 and 1931. So born 1863, died 1931. These are more, interactionists are more recent than non-structuralists. Interactionists are more recent, more recent theories compared to the structuralists. When you talk about the conflict perspective, the structural functionalist perspective, consensus perspective, those were they were older generation of theories. And that's why the non-structuralists or interactionists try to engage them in a debate and say, no, your arguments were not essentially correct when you look at it within the perspective that we know human action. So while George Herbert Mead, lived between 1863 and 1931, you have Weber, was born in 1864 and died in 1920. Then you have Peter Berger, who was born in 1929 and died in 2017, very recent, 2017. Then you have Peter, Thomas Luckman, who reigned between 1927 and 2016, and they did a lot of work together. So these are interactionists, and I found this interactionist perspective very recent and also very relevant. Like I mentioned, for George Herbert Mead, in the symbolic interactionism, believe that the role of symbols are very important, that people don't just act because social structures say they have to act in that manner. People act based on their interpretation of symbols, elements, interpretation of symbols as they interact with people, beyond the role of structures, beyond the role of what the social institutions have conditioned them to be. So they actually interpret carefully based on their interests, based on their values, based on their goals, based on their commitment, based on their means and wants. They then interpret symbols to be able to determine how to behave. So it's not necessarily the role of the structures in terms of deterministic perspective. The human beings are not wrong. And if you look at Weber from the social action theory, which I believe you will view on this channel, Weber believed that human action are determined by the society in which they find themselves as they interact at the micro level, based on their value propositions, based on their motives. Max Weber believes that human beings are rational beings who act rationally to achieve a particular purpose. That's what I was talking about: rational action, non-rational action, traditional action, towards achieving a particular purpose as rational beings. So you will find that in that video on social action too. Then if you look at Peter Berger and Thomas Luckman, they have done a lot of work on sociology of knowledge, sociology of religion, modernization, and constructionism. The fact that they believe that social construction, that human beings construct meanings. Meanings are very important in understanding in non-structuralist perspective or interactionist perspective. People give meanings to things as they interact with others, and these meanings will determine how they behave. And the meanings are also based on their constructions of realities. Realities are things that are effective and effectual in determining how people behave. And once people construct their reality based on their interpretation of their interactions, they act in that manner. You know, why those structures are there, why structuralists believe that, you know, structures and institutions are both external and internal in determining how people behave. Interactionists believe that structures are essentially external, and interaction determines meanings of people and how they behave per time. So for Berger, you know, and Luckman, you know, it is very essential for us to know that constructions of people are based on how they relate, and this will determine how they behave. You know, it's about action and interaction. If you look at the work of Berger and Luckman, you know, in 1966, which is called The Social Construction of Reality, you know, a treatise in sociology of knowledge. You know, they believe people get knowledge as they interact, and the knowledge they get would be based on their interaction as they deal with others. And as they engage in this interaction, they continue to construct meanings, which will continue to affect their action and interaction without sufficiently or necessarily emphasizing the role of structures. And if you look at it, the interactionist or non-structuralist perspective, you know, is bottom up, believing that while structure is there at the top, human actions can only be understood looking at it from the bottom of the social hierarchy, because interaction from the micro perspective happens at the bottom of social hierarchy. So as people continue to interact among themselves, the aggregation of their interaction ultimately inform the society, inform what happened in society per time, and then form the structure that we are talking about. Instead of the structuralists considering social structure from the top as affecting, determining how people behave, interactionists say, wait a minute, that's not the way it is. It's people's interaction at the micro, at the bottom level of society that determines in aggregation what happens at the structure. Isn't that interesting? I'm actually enjoying myself the way I'm addressing this issue. So this is very important for all to be able to know that human beings have free will. You know, free will of the individuals ultimately will determine how they behave. Human beings are not robots. They have free will as individuals to even determine what happens in the structure in the long run. So institutions are creations of the people, not institutions creating people. Wow, fantastic, awesome. I should repeat that. That institutions structures are actually creations of people, and people continue to inform the performance and the existence of the structure, not the other way around. That is why you have social change, and that's why people have argued that consensus perspective or structuralist perspective cannot explain change, because they continue to overemphasize the role of the structure. But interactionists say the only way we can understand society is to look at it, or the structures and institutions, as aggregation of human action and as creations of human action. So institutions or structures are not absolute. They are not absolute. They are not total. They are not deterministic. And this is very important, because human beings are rational. Human beings act intentionally with motives and goals in mind, based on their interaction. The way you act determines the way I will react. The symbol that you are using, symbols can be language, meanwhile, can be the norms, can be the culture, can be even the clothes that we wear. The symbol can even be greetings, can even be names, can even be a number of things, can even be the kind of cars that you drive, can even be the kind of phones that you use. And these symbols will then determine how I will relate with you. So even when the structure is objective, my action can be subjective per time, depending on what I want to achieve. And that's why we must look at deliberate actors, the intentions of actors. And the structures themselves are not rigid. They are dynamic. They can change depending on how people behave. So the rigidity of structures, is assumed and imposed on human action by the structuralists. And this is what the non-structuralists want to deconstruct and say the structures themselves are not rigid. They don't have a life of their own. So we must not give them larger than life identity, because they are created by humans for humans to achieve the purpose or purposes of humans. So these are the perspectives of that non-structuralists want to put in place. And it's very important because the non-structuralists, the interactionists, believe that for you to understand human action per time, you must look at the motives, you must look at the context of action, you must look at the goals that the actors want to achieve, you must look at their commitments per time, and this is very important, their purposes, their values, their goals, their expectations, their commitments, their intention as rationally. So it is this the examination of their purposes. If you look at their motives, if you look at their goals, if you look at their expectations, if you look at their commitments, all of this will assist you to understand how human beings behave and why they behave in that manner. You can then predict or at least project their actions and the consequences of their actions. So rather than looking at the structures, you can look at the context of their action, their commitment, their interpretation, their purposes, their goals, their expectations per time. You will then be able to understand why they are behaving in that manner. So it's very important. So I'm sure by this video now, you now understand what's actually the difference. And if you look at the works of Mead, as you can find in symbolic interactionism, if you look at the work of Weber, as you can find in social action theory, or his work on the Protestant ethics and the spirit of capitalism, or his works on bureaucracy, you'll be able to understand that all of these have said they are what they try to achieve. Even if you look at the work of Peter L. Berger or Thomas Luckman, you will see that their works I've mentioned, and the time they reign, the context of the time they reign, will enable you to see that the non-structuralist perspective or interactionists are in communication and debate with the structuralist perspective. Meanwhile, it's very important that you know this, that these perspectives and these theories are not mutually exclusive. Actually, all they're trying to do is to explain the human behaviors and how societies function. Don't forget, the primary interest of sociology is social order. Social order, to understand how order is achieved, and the direction the society is traveling, and to understand how human beings behave so that we can solve social problems. Social engineers, sociologists are social engineers, so for us to be able to understand it. So these theories, you can also do what we call theoretical triangulation or theoretical synthesis. So depending on the issues you are trying to explain per time, you may have to pay significant attention, strategic attention to all these theories, and you can triangulate them. What does triangulation mean? Triangulation means using more than one theory, more than one theory to explain a particular situation. So there may be some time that the structuralist perspective may be useful. You may also, in the same work, you may also find interactionist perspective useful. You may want to triangulate them, depending on the theory. The beauty of theories, it's just to assist you to explain what you are interested in. And this is actually what makes sociologists also very, identical by the theory and explanatory. Theories are explanatory frameworks for us to explain human action. So you might triangulate theories depending on your objective or objectives. So there's something called theoretical triangulation, but you must synthesize in the first instance by telling us the origin, and a number of things about these theories, like I've done in this video. Tell us at what point do they converge, at what point do they diverge. Once we're able to do this, synthesize them and bring out the elements. I have a video on how best to understand theories, which can help you, but are you able to use their concepts, their propositions, and synthesizing them, their linkages are divergence, and you are able to bring them together then to explain what you want to read. So theoretical triangulation is highly recommended. So that's why I say all these perspectives might not necessarily be mutually exclusive, but inherently mutually reinforcing to achieve, in order to achieve our purpose. Until I see you in my next video, I've really had a nice time in this video. Kindly click subscribe and share widely, and drop a comment if there are things you want me to know or to address in my next video. Till I see you in my next video, tap subscribe and bye for now.